What's up? Hope everyone's having a good day and is ready for another video in the series we like to call Underrated Throwers. Today we got one of my favorite hammer throwers of all time, what I think is one of the most criminally underrated throwers of all time. And he is called Balázs. Probably butchered that name because I'm not Hungarian like he is. But for those of you who don't know, he's still the NCAA record holder in the hammer at like 81 meters or something from USC, which is insane, and I don't think probably will ever be broken. Well, actually, maybe it will be broken this year by that Canadian guy. But that is just insane on its own. And then he went on to win the Olympics in 1996, throwing over 80 meters there. I think he threw over 81 there. His PR is 83 meters. He's, like I said, Olympic champion, 1996, two-time Pan Am's. I'm sorry, not Pan Am. I think European champion or something. Just super decorated. One of my favorite techniques. So let's watch him. This is an 81-meter throw from him. And yeah, overall, I just love his technique. I think he gets excellent length on the hammer, amazing counter, does a lot of things well. Obviously, he has to throw 83 meters. But yeah, I just think because whenever people talk about a lot of the best hammer throwers, I feel like his name should pop up there. Because throwing 81 meters in college is actually insane. Alright? Throwing over 80 meters in general is insane, but especially at that young is crazy. And then relatively around the same time, throwing and winning the Olympics in 96, that's crazy too. Not to mention he beat Lance Deal, the former American record holder who threw over 80 in that comp as well. So that's crazy in itself as well. Who Lance Steele I'll make a video on later on, probably next month. I was actually going to make a video today about him. This was going to be that video, but I decided I want to make a video on Balázs instead today. And I think he's also criminally underrated because he comes from Hungary, which has some of the best hammer throwers ever, like Adrian Anos, Igor, no, that's Belarus, a bunch of names I can't pronounce. Adrian Anos, Christian Pars, just a whole bunch of just crazy. They just keep pumping up 80-meter throwers. There's a thrower now from Hungary who's also an 80-meter thrower who almost just won the Worlds. Yeah, they're just they're like Belarus. Them and Belarus just keep making just crazy hammer throwers. But I think he's also unique in the fact that he's one of the few Hungarian hammer throwers that haven't been popped for drugs. Now, I'm not saying he didn't take drugs, but it's an accomplishment in himself that he never got popped. And judging by how big he is, I don't know if he took drugs. I don't know. But I'm not going to accuse him of taking drugs if he hasn't been popped, because that's just weird. Alright, so, and at the end of the day, I don't really care. I think I've already said in a video my stance on drugs and throwing. I just want to see people throw far. I'm not, me personally, as a fan of watching the sport, I'd rather see someone throw like 83 meters than someone throw like 75. That's just my opinion. But, whatever. Maybe it'd be different if I was competing against these guys. But as just a guy watching them, call me crazy. But, yeah. But anyway, let's get into his technique. So he does a step in, really nice connection. And then right here, he does something that is not really taught very much and is a very controversial thing that him and Vadim Debutovsky did a lot. How they like to really reach forward instead of going back and countering. But I think people don't understand is the reason why they do this is, one, to get extra length, and two, because him and Debutovsky are such crazy athletes. They're able to counter from this position, and also it's the first turn. They're not going that fast. You know, they don't, in the first turn for a four-turner, you don't have to counter that much. You know, you do have to counter, but it's not, the hammer's not pulling him forward. You know, he's still staying grounded. All right, but he's just reaching forward a little, so he gets that extra length. All right. So I like that personally. If you can do it, it's very hard to do because you need a crazy amount of strength to do that, especially if you're going to throw 81 on this throw. So which he does. But I really like the patience here. So as you guys figured out, so this is let's see. This is like the middle of the ring, so he's starting super offset. Like this is the sideline right here. Like this signifies the middle of the ring going this way. So he's almost facing this way. So he's crazy offset. So right here, this is his 90 meter. Like this is his 90 degree. So he picks up at 90. Really nice patient, and you notice that his feet do not move until he hits 90. All right, so he's moving the ball first. Great catch. And then from here, and he catches a little wide, but that's okay. It's not crazy wide. Now, normally you don't see people stick your butt out, but again, it's just first turn. And then you notice the second he starts his second turn, he stops sticking his butt out, and now he's countering. And it's a really nice counter. Really love the length. I think one of the most underrated part of his throws is how much length he gets on his throw. Like, let's watch this full speed. Back it up a little. Look at the length he gets because of that first turn. And because he reaches forward a little on his first turn, he really establishes good length and good relaxation and establishes a very wide orbit. So I really like that. I personally wouldn't teach it unless you're like this kind of level because, it's extremely hard to do. But I think it can lead to far throws. But people don't do that and throw further throws. So it's just a matter of, whether it works for you or not. So I will say more often than not, it does not work. The only throwers I can think that have done that and thrown over 80 meters are Balázs and Vadim Debutovsky. So, take that with a grain of salt. But, I will say you only do it on your first turn. You realize, so as you can see, the second turn, he immediately stops sticking his butt out. All right, he immediately starts countering, sitting back against the hammer. Still staying grounded until he hits 90. Great orbit. Now his feet are getting tighter. So his first turn, his feet were kind of wide, and now he starts getting tighter. So that's normally what you want, especially because when you go, especially because he's starting at an offset, he kind of wants to land a little late. And you notice how he's landing with the heel first on his right foot. So he lands with the heel and then flat foot. And you generally see that a lot. So you generally see, let me see. I know this is bad quality. Okay. So, you notice here. Lands with the heel. Sorry about the quality. But you can kind of see it. Lands with the heel, goes on flat foot, and then the ball of the foot. And what this does is, one, it lets him sit. When you land on the heel with your right foot, and then kind of roll onto the ball of the foot, it kind of makes you sit back a little longer and kind of makes you do a little wave, and it basically helps you sit back. Because if you were to land on your toe, you're going to want to go up and down. But because he lands on his heel, he's able to keep back and keep this sitting back position. So Koji, if you want to look at someone who does this better, I guess better. Well, not really better, but someone who throws in the time when you can actually see what they're kind of doing, when video resolution was a thing. Look up Koji because he does this a lot. And a lot of hammer throwers do that. There's very few hammer throwers that are good that actually land on the balls of their feet. because they don't want to move their feet, especially with this. So you notice, so he's here, doesn't move his feet until the ball passes 0, and by 0 I mean his belly button. So if he were to land on the ball his foot, he would think about turning the foot, and his feet and his legs would get past the hammer. When you want the hammer to move, then the hammer to move your feet. So I think he does a great job of that. So again, you land flat-footed, or land on your heel and then rock, and then kind of go heel flat and then ball of the foot to kind of stop your feet from moving and let the ball pass. All right, and it allows you to sit back more, because if you go on your toes, you're at this kind of speed, you're gonna want to go. It's gonna be a lot harder to counter. All right, just like in a squat, if you're on the balls of your feet when you're doing a back squat, you're gonna probably fall forward. Whereas if you're supposed to go on your heels in the back squat, it's a lot easier to sit back and actually squat and stay balanced and not fall forward or backwards. So it's kind of the same principle there. So it does an excellent job here. Great pickup. All right, same thing. Feet starting to get tighter. And does a great job here. Great 90 pickup. Boom, feet tight. Feet tight. And you notice every time the hammer is going up, he's sitting down. He's sitting back. And what I mean by sitting, and I did a video about countering explaining this a lot more, but what I mean by sitting back is that you want to think about walking backwards, or basically to make it simpler, you want to think when the hammer goes up, this part of your body sits back like you're going to sit in a chair. All right? Like a really exaggerated, like sitting in a chair. All right? And then as the ball goes down, you sit back and up. All right? So basically, ball goes up, you go down. Ball goes down, you go up. But just don't think about going up and down like a piston, because you should always be sitting back. All right? But it's just the way your body will feel like it's moving. And you notice another thing that he does extremely well is that as he's getting ready to catch again into his turn, you notice that every time he drops his left knee to the floor. Not to the floor, but he drops it. And he's not stomping with his right foot. The right foot's just kind of landing. And that's what you want. You don't want to think about moving your right foot, like actually stepping, because that's going to lead to you picking up your right foot too soon and not being fluid in your throw and being super herky-jerky. If you do your turn correctly and the ball is moving it should just happen. All right? It would be the equivalent of like shot put and discus. Instead of letting the ground come to you in the middle, you just reaching for the ground and trying to put your right foot down in the middle as fast as possible. All right? That's not good. And it's the same kind of principle in hammer. So you want to think as you're about to ground to turn again, you notice the second he gets here, his left knee drops. His left knee drops, and he kind of goes forward with his knees. All right? And you want to go forward. You want to go like down and forward with your knees instead of your feet. Because when you do that, you keep the stability and strength in your hips, and it allows you to sit back more. Because when your knees go forward, your hips will go back. And that's what you want. All right? So you notice here, because he didn't just think about stepping. And also when you think about stepping, you're going to have a tendency to want to pick this right foot up really high. And I know some people do that. But in general, you want this right foot to be below this left knee. especially in hammer, because you want your feet to get down fast, especially when you're going these speeds. So always keep your right foot low to the ground. You know, especially because if they go high, you're going to have a tendency to want to stand up and to catch late. So on your turn, so the lower the better. And the general rule of thumb in hammer, never go above a quarter squat in your knees. So never rise above a quarter squat, and you never want to lock out your knees. Always keep your knees bent. All right? And the further you throw, the more they'll still stay bent. All right? But as long as you follow that general knowledge, like that general advice, you should be fine. Just never go above a quarter squat, either a quarter squat or below. And he does an excellent job here. Now, he's also a lot lower. He throws a lot like Vadim Debutovsky, actually. So, and I won't say that Vadim was inspired by him, because, I mean, they threw around the same time. Vadim was a little later than him, but still. They actually competed against each other several times. But let's get back to this. So, really nice. So, yeah. So, you want to think the knees dropping, like the left knee dropping, and then you kind of just put this right knee forward and down instead of thinking about stepping with your foot. All right? Because that lets his hips sit back. Because if he was to just step, he would want to stand up, and then he would lose his counter and be pulled forward. All right? So he does an excellent job of that. And you notice as the hammer goes down, his body goes up and he's grinding the ground. And then he drops again. And then excellent release. And again, people will say, oh, this is a bad release because he didn't stay grounded. When you're going these speeds, when you're throwing at like 70 plus meters, a lot of people just don't stay grounded, you know. But you notice he's staying grounded while the hammer's in his hand. That's the more important part. All right? And then after this, he's just trying to stay in the ring. He's just hanging on for dear life and just trying to stay in the ring. But as long as the hammer is out of your hand, it doesn't really matter because you're not applying force anymore. So now your only objective is to just stay in the ring, you know? And he does a great job of that. All right, but that's something to realize. So, and because he's sitting back, you notice that he's falling back this way. That's good, you know, because if he was to go forward that way, that means he lost his counter and the hammer pulled him that way, and he wouldn't go very far and he would probably foul. All right, so that's something to keep in mind too, because the hammer's out of his hand here. All right, and he stayed grounded this entire time when the hammer's in his hand, and then he fights to stay in. All right. So that's something to keep in mind too. I will say in practice, it's good. It's always good to stick your throw and not move like that. But also when you're going these speeds and you're in competition, you're not thinking about technical things. You're not thinking about, oh, let me do the most perfect technical throw ever. Because technical throws don't really go far, you know. But it's good to do them in practice. But also if you're trying to throw for distance, you don't want to be thinking about, oh, my knee didn't hit 45 degrees or whatever. You know, stop with that stuff, all right? You're in there to throw far. You shouldn't be thinking, all right? And especially someone at this level is not really thinking about what they're doing during a competition. They might have like one cue in mind, but that's it. All right? And also, I guarantee you, a lot of the people watching this video, if you threw 81 meters, you'd probably throw you probably would not stick the landing. Koji is one of the only people I've seen that actually have stuck a 80-meter throw. You know, it's extremely hard to do, all right? But it's also not necessary. You don't really need to. But I will say, if you're moving like this when the hammer's still in your hand, that's the problem. That's a problem. But since it's out of his hand, it does not matter. All right? So let's watch this full speed one more time. You know, it's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. But always sitting back. All right? Always sitting back. always has a little crescent here. And he keeps that the entire time. Alright? So that's something to keep in mind. Again, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys appreciate him for who he is and what he's accomplished. And yeah, I'll link his personal best, his height and weight, his notable accomplishments in the video description. And as always, and see you guys in the next episode.